Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We're doing our library update for August 1st, 2023. These are all of the board games that entered the SideGame Library during the month of July 2023. We're going to talk about all of the new arrivals, the expansions, upgrades, as well as all of the pre-orders, things that are going to be coming into the library. In general, I'm excited to talk about all these games and talk about what were my highs, my lows, and get your feedback on what we're talking about. In this edition, we're going live because I've got the time and I'm excited to see what the community has to see and say about these games that I'm about to talk about. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. And for those of you already subscribed, thank you so much for the continuous support. Let's get started talking about all of the board games that entered the library in the month of July 2023. Now we'll start off our first section with a huge project that finally delivered. This is Too Many Bones Unbreakable. And I'm going to talk about all of the different portions of Too Many Bones Unbreakable, starting off with the core expansion itself. So this is going to give a brand new map for the game that also includes 2 new characters and 5 tyrants for this adventure system. You're going to have a new board that features volcano tiles that are going to be flipping upside down to show that there's lava, and you're going to have to maneuver around them. There's a brand new type of baddie that has been fully fleshed out, the break type, that interacts with the lava, and they're going to be able to make the tiles flip, and that's going to give you some pressure to spend some of your dexterity on repositioning. It opens up a lot of different strategies and combos. You're trying to think about your actions in tandem with these different abilities that interact with that lava, and I love this additional concept for the map. I think that it opens up so many different aspects for all of the different gear locks, so I think that this is a must-get expansion for the map itself, the new encounter cards, as well as the fleshing out of those break type baddies, and it also brings up the total count of the orcs as well as the trolls, all the way up to the poison and goblin and kobolds that were fleshed out in Undertow. So definitely recommend you give this one a try for that core system. And we have a comment here from Monster Motorsports, Diecast Racing. Thank you so much for being here. And hello from Colorado Springs. Awesome to have a fellow local here talking about board games. Awesome. So we're going to be talking about some other in-depth things that came in this wave of expansion content. Aside from this core box, the 2 new characters, you have a cyborg that is going to have these upgrade lines that you can unlock, but also Figment, who has some time and initiative manipulation, a lot of fun. He is the only character that I have not played from all the new stuff at this point, but I've seen him played 3 times at this point. So Gale and Figment do come in that core box. Now, in addition, you're going to have 3 more gear locks that are accessible. You have Static, who is a monk who can take a lot of time to charge up. Not a playstyle that I really enjoy playing myself, but then you have 2 of, I think, the best gear locks that have come out in recent times. You have the character that is a chef that is going to be taking down enemies and putting them on his meat hooks and then using them for additional weapons. And then lastly, you have Polaris, who is a magnetic master. And so you're going to be throwing all these magnets around. And just in general, I think that it opens up a lot of creativity and freedom. It gives me some vibes of Nugget as well, where she's doing the treasure delving, and you have a similar concept where you're able to have these dice line that will allow you to get additional bonuses and upgrades between your missions. So it gives you a lot of different options when it comes to that. So strongly recommend give Carcass and Polaris. I think those are the must-buy gear locks from this expansion in general, but I think that the Unbreakable box is extremely solid altogether. So I love these new expansions, and I think that they've fleshed out some things that I thought were missing in Too Many Bones, in particular that map movement and the using your dexterity, your action points in new, interesting ways. So overall, extremely impressed with that. Now, I am also going to show a brand new entry to the library. This came in on Tuesday, I believe, last Tuesday. And this is, I'm just going to be straight up with it. This is the best game that I've played that's been released this year. This is Age of Innovation. Now, this puts me in a weird spot because it is a redone version of Terra Mystica. It is a Terra Mystica game, different name, but it is basically the exact same game with some new changes. So if you're unfamiliar with Terra Mystica, this is a game of area management. You are going to be engine building by creating buildings and placing them on a board and trying to get enough into a certain area to create cities that all lead into scoring points. You'll have these round bonuses that give you points for doing specific things during the round. So it's all about that long-term strategy, but also the turn-by-turn timing. You have a single action that you get to take a turn, and you want to be close to your neighbors because you generate additional resources for doing so, but you also want to be a little bit away from them because they are going to gobble up your options and resources if you get a little too close. So there's a lot of competition, timing, interacting, pushing back, knowing when to go into different areas, and it's all encaptured in this experience again, but they've added the variability to the top tier in this one. Your characters are paired individually with your boards, and so they're not tied to specific types, and the boards have different effects, and the characters that you pick have different effects. On top of that, they've taken the concepts from Gaia Project, pairing the tactiles, the special abilities that you get with different cult tracks, meaning that you're going to have different races, different abilities that are allocated to this, and they've added a brand new resource, the book resource, that allows you to pick up special abilities and scoring opportunities that are also going to be different from game to game. And I didn't know that Terra Mystica would have improved by adding all of these extra things, but they're small, but streamlined and elegant. I love the way that they've put them in here, and they've kept that original feel of the game without adding a bunch of overhead that's going to make things confusing. This gives you customizability at the start of the game, but also as the game progresses, because based on the decisions that you make in game, what currencies you're picking, what routes you're going down, you can choose special abilities that may work well with yours, or that may work well based on the situation that has evolved with the players and the decisions they've made. I think Age of Innovation is the best Terra Mystica game, and this has been the best game that I've played in 2023. So I think that what I'm going to do at the end of the year, since it does share so much DNA with the original Terra Mystica, is I'll probably put it as an honorable mention at the front, and then talk about the other games that are truly new releases that have come out this year. But if you are on the fence at all about getting this, even if you already have Terra Mystica and you feel that you don't really need this, it's also just 14 brand new factions for Terra Mystica that have that cross compatibility, and you can also customize those abilities throughout the course of the gameplay. Comes with 2-player all the way up to 5-player. Sorry, it comes with a solo mode all the way up to 5-player, and then the 2-player map is also tighter and smaller, and you can use it for a 3-player game as well. And there are even a couple of extra rules that will make it a little bit more interesting. This is a winner. Age of Innovation, incredible experience. Whew, I'm so hyped on this one. Next up, we have Unmatched expansion. This is Brains versus Bronze. Got a chance to play all of these fighters. We actually had a Unmatched tournament at FrankCon just recently, and Brains versus Bronze introduces 3 new fighters, and 2 I think are must-gets, while unfortunately one of them has really underperformed. Now, starting off, I think my favorite fighter in this box from a thematic and just a fun standpoint is She-Hulk. She has this crazy special ability that is similar to Medusa from the core set, where you can discard cards in your hand to just deal direct damage to other characters on the board. She also has a lot of fun thematic cards that are interesting and unique. She has this particularly cool card where it's a 3-attack card, but you can spend your second action for the turn to make it a 9-strength card. So it can catch people off guard, but also it can hurt real bad when it gets foiled by maybe something that prevents damages or effects. So I love that there's some counterplay and reading that gets added with those special ability cards. She's also just a lot of fun with all of her unique effects, getting additional card draw, healing. She's got that extra damage from her base effect, and then lots of cool movement manipulation. You also have Doctor Strange, who is extremely cool. He feels kind of the most overall powerful, and I think probably going to be very top tier in most tournament plays. But unfortunately, the lowest character, and the character I just don't really have that much fun playing with in this set, is Spider-Man. And Spider-Man really is, he's got this ability where whenever cards are played against Spider-Man, you get to know the numbers. So it definitely benefits if you've played a lot of Unmatched and you can figure out, oh, I know exactly what card that person is playing. And Spider-Man has a lot of ways to draw cards, and he has these temporary stat buffs, and some of his abilities even prevent specific amounts of damage that are going to spill over. But what I found with Spider-Man is a lot of his cards are not that exciting or interesting. And so even though you have card draw and ways to react to different cards, it didn't feel that great because the cards that I were drawing weren't that interesting. And I felt like I was building up to turns that were not extremely exciting or rewarding, and I wasn't really able to adapt to different situations. I was more playing into them with the best options that I had. So not really a big fan of Spider-Man, but I think that Doctor Strange as well as She-Hulk are must-gets. Now, I do want to put this out. The other people that did play Spider-Man, a couple of them really enjoyed this. My wife, Ariana, as well as my sister-in-law, Jessica, enjoyed playing Spider-Man when they gave them a try. But for me and my friend Robert, we both just didn't think that he was worth playing, and not one that I'm ever going to go back to grab. So that was Unmatched Brains and Bronze. It's an awesome expansion overall, and I really like the map as well. You're playing in, it's not Camartage, the Sanctum Sanctorum with new items. Next up is Fox Matters. I was actually gifted a copy of this from a friend who accidentally ordered 2 in a Kickstarter. So my task was to learn it and then be able to teach it. And this game is a cooperative game that's all about symbol matching. At the start of each round, you're going to be putting out cards into players' hands, and you don't get to look at them until the round starts. You put all these cards in your hand, and then you're playing them into these different rows. So you'll have these problems, for example, a broken mug, and they may have specific icons that you need to solve them, or a specific amount of card. It's like symbols total that you need. So for that broken mug, you need at least 4 symbols, and one of them has to be a crown. But you don't get to see your cards until you start a real-time timer. So you set that real-time timer go, and you're playing these cards, and you can see on the top of the cards, they have these little arrows that will show what you can play underneath. So you're trying to play cards that combo into other cards, but you only have a certain amount of limited time to do so. And I found it super difficult. Like, we got steamrolled when we played this game, and it felt so hard. And then I tried it solo, and the solo is also crazy difficult. It felt like just this uphill battle, and you win if you complete the final problem, which is this crazy amount of numbers, and if you don't die on the way to that actually happening. So it's mitigating all of these problems by using your limited resources, but it's super difficult to actually feel like you know what you're doing, because that planning only happens during the real-time portion. So I found it to be difficult and stressful, and I don't think it's particularly like crazy fun, but I do think it's a pretty good challenge, and it's something that you need a group that's willing to go and be willing to participate and do something that is challenging. And they got to be all committed, because if somebody is lacking, they're not committing their cards, which can interrupt your chains. It is pretty crazy how this little cute game could be so frustrating and also difficult. So that is Fox Matters. And next up, we have Someone Has Died, and this is a big surprise to me. It's a little role-playing game. I received this as a present, so that's just to get added to the library. Excited for this one. And Someone Has Died is a game that is focused on role playing. The idea is that everybody at the table has a fellow person that they know, and they'll have their own relationships to that person that'll be revealed as you play, that has died. And it's up to you as a moderator to determine who is going to actually receive all of the it's not necessarily cash. It's something to receive the something that is in the will. And that's the premise of the game. Is it's totally random when it comes to the prompts, but it's up to the playing group to actually link these prompts into a believable story. So the last one that we did, we had someone who died, and they were a taxidermist, and they were giving out their prized 3 taxidermies to the people at the table. You had some that were like long lost lovers, some that were business partners, and then they would have these other cards that would be revealed as you play that you have to weave into the story. And I thought this seemed just like a pretty straightforward, it's a judge game, not a big deal. But this game is super fun. I think the writing in it is awesome. There's these prompts that you really don't know, and they come out of left field. And my favorite part about this game is there's a card that you can use. It's an interruption card that I think it's called a blackmail card or something like that. And if somebody's in the middle of a prompt, when appropriate, you can spend this card, and they have to incorporate this new thing into whatever they're saying. And I think that's so much fun, because people are engaged, looking for opportunistic moments to add extra improv. And this is definitely a improv role-playing style game. If you're not going to like that, you're not going to enjoy this game. But it reminded me of the arc of something like Deception, Murder of Hong Kong, actually, where the game just keeps going. Like, there's no downtime. You're always playing. And at the end of it, you have this story, this interesting idea that you've created as a group. And it's so much fun. It's fun to be the moderator. It's fun to not be the moderator and be a person vying for the prize. And everything feels like this logical procession of ideas, but all with this crazy bonkers prompt that's all bringing it up to the forefront. So I was quite surprised at how much I enjoyed this one. That is Someone Has Died. Next up, we have our expansion for Marvel Zombies, and this is Galactus the Devourer. On the thumbnail there, this is a crazy, huge expansion where you are fighting against Galactus themselves. Now, the cool thing about this is this expansion is pretty well thought out, as it offers 4 new scenarios for the game. Now, you do use the giant Galactus miniature for it, but you're still using all the components from the main game, plus there are some new cards as well as boards that you use with the Galactus miniature. Now, there are 2 different ways to play. You either play as the zombies trying to eat the human Galactus, because if not human, but eat the non-zombie Galactus, because if you don't eat the non-zombie Galactus, then you won't have any people left for you to eat. So that's your motivation behind it. Or you can play as the heroes killing the zombie Galactus. So right now we don't have any of the hero content yet. That's going to be coming with the rest of the Kickstarter stuff, but we're able to play it, and we played both of the missions and had a great time. One of the coolest things that this adds is, because Galactus is so powerful and dangerous, he is going to add these galactic powers, and these are cosmic powers powers that you can gain by either defeating Silver Surfer or getting these additional bonuses from eating the heroes that are trying to stop you. And these give you unique abilities and powers in addition to your hero's effects as well as the traits. So you're going to try to juggle all of these new effects, use them together, and get your team to defeat Galactus once and for all. I enjoy how he is going to gain additional bonuses for defense. He has this positioning attack that's based on if you are exposed, so he can attack you when you're outdoors, which means that you are carrying and timing yourself on when you want to move. It encourages you to sort of interrupt your tempo by getting special abilities and powers, which just gives you more options. I like this one a lot. I thought it was so fun, and it makes sense in this universe. So the price tag is gigantic on this one. The expansion is so cool, thematic, and fun, and I think it's a great fit for the Marvel Zombies universe. Very impressed with this one. This is the Galactus, the Devourer expansion for Marvel Zombies. Looking forward to trying the hero version next. Next up, we ordered a bunch of booster boxes for Star Wars Destiny. We had 3 new booster boxes, so I guess not new. They're definitely old. We got them discounted. I believe they're from Game Nerds or a Miniatures Market, something like that. They were $50 a piece, which is like half the normal price, which is pretty great, I guess, at the time when they were released. So I think that's kind of the normal right now for the discontinued cards. But the game itself is a lot of fun. It's a dueling game where you're going to have a team of Star Wars characters that all have these different color affiliations that determine what you can play in your deck, and your cards have dice that are associated to them. Very similar to the back and forth nature of something like Age of Innovation. And I love the tempo, as you have only a single action you get to do, and it's back and forth with your opponent. So it's about timing. It's about knowing when to roll your dice, when to spend them, when to play the cards in your hand, when to pass. All these are integral to success, and I think it's so much fun as you're building up this engine of dice that are thematic to the Star Wars nature, and then using them to fight your opponents. So what I did with this is I created a bunch of decks for the game. So there are 6 now, and I put them all in a box, and they have like these dual packs. And so I made it so they have several different genres that you can play as. So I made one that's the Last Jedi, essentially, where you have Finn, Poe, and Rose that's on a team, and it uses like a singleton red deck, because we found I have this card where it's like you play one ofs only, but it makes it so that you can play additional points in your starting lineup. So I thought that was kind of cool. Did a bounty hunter focused one with Jango and Boba Fett. That was pretty cool. I have one with Darth Vader and some TIE fighter pilots. There's also one with Mace Windu and Aayla Secura, and that's, I think, my favorite one. You use the Force, and you're getting all sorts of shield tokens and upgrades. It's super satisfying to play. I was quite impressed how they ran, and I think that the one that probably did the worst, but is super funny, is there's a General Grievous deck. He's this terrible Jedi hunter, droid general, and he generally is going to use lightsabers, and he has 4 arms for lightsaber holding, but I had used all of the lightsabers in most of the other decks, so what I ended up doing is he has like an ability where if he's got 4 things on his hand, then he gets these bonuses. So I made him a jank General Grievous, where it doesn't matter what's in his hand. He just has like a stick or a one gun and a prodding iron and the other one. It's so funny because it works somehow with the deck construction. It's hilarious. So that's the jank General Grievous deck. It's a lot of fun to go through and sit at this for like the first time, looking at all these brand new cards and see what sort of things I can make up and still have a fun time with it. So looking forward to playing more Star Wars Destiny, and I imagine that somewhere along the line, I'll probably get more for the library. Next up is Dawn. Now, this was sent to SideGame LLC for review purposes. There's actually a review on the channel if you want my entire thoughts on this one. And this was a pleasant surprise. Excellent artwork, but the game is where it shines, as it's a unique social deduction experience where players are able to decide when and if they want to be on the bad team, sabotaging the land. So you're trying to put all these cards into piles, similar to something like Battlestar Galactica, but every single card is multi-purpose, as you can use it to contribute to these different works, or you can discard it for special abilities right then and there. You have an entire arc of 6 turns, I believe it is, in order to finish up these large projects, but also defeat these intermittent threats as well as scoring opportunities. A lot of fun, and I think if you're interested in this one, go check out the full review. This is a hard recommend from me. That is Dawn. Oh, awesome game. So good. Next up is another game from that we received for review purposes. This is River Wild. We got this from Button Shy Games, and this one is a simple card placing game with extremely variable scoring. Now, I think that this game is actually pretty dang good. It's one of my favorites from the solo lines from Button Shy Games. And the way it works is you're putting out these cards and you have a lot of choice when it comes to laying them out because of the connection aspect. So when you play cards down, you need to make sure that the river continues flowing, but you can either put them partially in betweens, as you can see here, or you can put them fully underneath. So by doing so, you're limiting your options, but you're making specific scoring criteria work. Your goal here is to try to make sure you're putting all of the animals in areas that they have scoring opportunities, and you can have multiples of these stack. But you also score extra points for having separate scoring areas. So lots of things to juggle, and it's all in that 18 cards. I enjoy this a lot, and I think that I would love more expansions for this just to see more variety, more scoring opportunities, and maybe more new symbols on this. And that is doubly so for the other Button Shy that we're going to talk about in a second here. That is my favorite Button Shy game that we've received for review purposes. The next game was a huge surprise for me, and this is Nexus Ops. So Nexus Ops, I played the original version and was blown away with it. And a friend of mine, Priscilla, she's on the channel sometimes, she had a copy of Nexus Ops, the second edition, that she just didn't care for. So we actually did a game trade, and the new Nexus Ops here, I'm saying new when it's like, how old is this one? Yeah, 18 years old. But the new version of Nexus Ops, I was so surprised because it came with expansion content, and I did not know that. So the original Nexus Ops has you playing this objective-driven race to 12 points. Every time you win a battle, you get a point, so you're encouraged to go fight, and then you'll also be getting objective cards every single round where you're trying to make something happen, whether it be winning on specific tiles, winning against specific units, doing something interesting in battle, and you're all trying to make sure that you're using the resources you're gaining, putting out units, and winning fights. So it's a super fast game as that race is happening, and you're going at each other all the time. It's a lot of fun, but this second edition offered a new backside to the faction board, so you can play a completely different game where all of your units do different things. So much fun. That was awesome to just explore and be like, oh my gosh, what does this effect do? It's so interesting. There's also this new rule that you can do where you can, normally when you went into the center tile here, this was the tower, I think is what it's called, you would normally be able to get special ability cards if you did so, but now there's an option where you can gain an extra point, but you give every other player special ability cards. So it's a super high risky play, but I think it's kind of awesome as it can accelerate that game state, making the game just a bit faster, but also giving more powers to more people, encouraging more fighting, making more interesting things happen. I love this system. I think that it's so much fun. It reminds me of like we played this game recently on the channel, Zaberius. Zaberius is like, oh man, that is in the sell pile because I think that Nexus Ops fills that niche of this. I'm generating things to generate resources, using those resources to summon units, immediately going fighting. It adds the tension with the objective and the race system. So it feels like the tempo of the game is incredible. And it also gives me a lot of feelings like Blood Rage, where you want to be engaged in pretty much everything all the time. And it encourages you to push your units out. I love this one. That is Nexus Ops, and this new edition with all those little extra expansions. So much fun. Next is Ancient Realm, and this is another game that was sent to us for review purposes by Button Shy Games. And this is the one that I was saying that is the best game that I've played from Button Shy. I think that that Skulls of Sedlec beats it out. It's just a smidge because of the expansions and the replayability. But if Ancient Realms gets that, I think that the core system of Ancient Realms is so satisfying that this is going to be the one that I play the most. It's fantastic. I can see it getting up to a 9 or a 10 based on what that expansion content offers. But that core system is so good. So take a look here. You've got these resources that you're going to start on your board, and then you use these resources in order to build wonders. And the game is all about building. It's sort of this, I'm not going to say timeline, but this panorama of cards. And so whenever you take a card, you're going to either place it on the sides of your panorama, increasing what's actually in your civilization, or you place it on top of your pre-existing things. When you place on top of pre-existing things, you can pay some of your resources in order to trigger their effects. And so you're constantly deciding like, oh, I need to go for this wonder. I need to go for this card. I need to trigger this to activate that. And then you also have these passive events that are on the other sides of your cards that are not wonders. I forget what they're called in specific, but you're always playing to the strengths of the abilities, trying to time it so that they shift at times where you can make the most benefits out of them, and trying to squeeze as much as you can from each of your actions because you only have the 18 cards. And so based on the order that the different wonders come out, it's going to change your decisions. And each of the cards has at least 3 different choices. And so you're figuring out what you want to leave in your city for scoring opportunities, what you want to trigger, when you want to trigger them, and it's all based on adjacency and whatever events are happening and how they all work together. It is such a bizarre, cool concept, and it took a little while for it to click, but then after playing it, it's just one that I keep on coming back to. As mentioned before, I do want more expansion content from this, just more variability on the different cards that are on the wonders in particular, because after a while you do see all of them and you sort of know what to expect. So I'd like to see a little bit more there. And heck, I could play, if they added maybe a longer version of this game, I'd enjoy that. I just think that there's a lot that you can do with this system, and I think the system is brilliant. So that is Ancient Realm. Amazing game. Next up is the expansion for Spirit Island. This is Spirit Island Nature Incarnate, and I was excited for this one because it offered opportunities for you to have this physical entity on the board. And this one, you're trying to repel colonizers from your island and help out the locals. And this is honestly just a more stuff expansion. I was pretty impressed how it wasn't this crazy thing that was going to change the entire landscape of the game. It just added more options and more different opportunities that your different characters could use. One of the characters that I used was the Ember-Eyed Behemoth here, and they have this incarnate that actually is the Ember-Eyed Behemoth. It's the mountain that's moving around. And so a lot of your powers will move and direct from this character. And there's several of the new characters that have these incarnates, and that there are even extra cards that you can use to retroactively give this incarnate symbol and this incarnate gameplay to older characters. I think it's a cool expansion that just breathes new life into the system without being overly complicated. And real talk, I think that Jagged Earth still has some of the most complicated spirits that you're going to get in Spirit Island. I also played this super goofy one where you're this gigantic sun. Didn't use the incarnates, but just a super interesting spirit. I love the repetition of abilities and powers, but it has to target the same area. It was an awesome experience. I think that this just has more spirits. If you love Spirit Island, you're going to love this one. It just adds more things without cluttering up, and I think that's awesome. I think it's one of my favorite types of expansions for sure. Next up was Expeditions. We did a organizing video for it on the channel. We got the Ironclad edition, and in this you are using a card system in order to play your different objectives, trying to match symbols, getting different powers, abilities, all in the effort to race to 4 stars for that end game trigger. It borrows a lot of, I wouldn't say mechanisms, but like maybe triggers from Scythe, where you have this action economy that you are adjusting. You can never overlap on the same action. You are racing to do specific objectives, and that's what's going to trigger the end game by placing stars. But it centralizes around generating 2 resources. And that's your guile and your power. And so most of your cards that you use will interact with those to remove other cards. And your whole shtick is you are trying to build up this hand of cards that all have, the meteorites have scoring in particular, and trying to combo those, you can get a bunch of different scoring chances. The game itself, I feel, is super strong in like the first half of the game and then the last quarter. There's this section in that third quarter where people are sort of doing whatever they need. I don't even know how to describe it. It is cool. I like the cards that you're getting. The cards are fun to play. You have quests that you're trying to complete, giving you extra abilities. But you get to this point in like that third quarter where it feels like people are just sort of going through the motions a little bit until someone gets to like almost like the 3rd star. I think it's 4 to trigger the game. I forget now, but you are trying to make sure that you're being as efficient as possible on every single turn, because there's a lot of turns that you're going to be taking. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that the gameplay arc feels the same, where you have that early game where you're getting those initial resources, but the cards are going to dictate what sort of actions happen and how they're going to play out, particularly in those earlier turns as you race for there's these combat tokens that are worth quite a bit of points, as well as open up actions. And it's super useful to actually grab those. So I like that tension at the beginning. And then there's the tension at the end as you are trying to make sure that you're completing your cards there. But then you have that open space in the middle that it's fine, but it's not something that I find super interesting or engaging. This is one that I find a little hard to rate, honestly, because I enjoy the speed of this. I enjoy the gameplay, but it is missing the big interaction pieces that were in that original Scythe game. But I also like how fast it is. I like how card centric it is. I love playing cards and getting additional abilities and associated effects. I think that the exploration does feel a little bit samey from game to game, but overall, I think this is one that I do enjoy. I think that the core mechanisms in the original Scythe are stronger, but I think that this gameplay is fast and quick. And once once you know how to play this game, we had a 3-player game and we knocked it out in like 40 minutes, which is kind of cool that you can just pick it up as almost a light card game with this Scythe universe. Also, the art in this is top notch. I love the storytelling in general, and it's just a lot of fun. I enjoy playing this one, and it's one that I'm going to come back to. So that is Scythe, the Expedition sequel. Next up is a super small card game that I tried for the first time at a friend's house, and I was super impressed. This is Monster My Neighbor. It's a cute little card game that reminds me of a mix of something like Love Letter plus Old Maid of all things, where you are going to become one of two sides throughout the game. Now, you're either going to be the monster who needs to play the monster card. If they do, they win the game immediately. Or you are going to be anybody else, I should say, who's just trying to get rid of the monster. So you play as it's like a neighborhood where everybody knows there's a monster in the house, and you're either trying to out them or help them out. And there are cards that you can use to join the monster's team. And so you're playing cards that can shift cards between different players' hands, look at players' hands, a lot of the Love Letter type effects, but then also the Old Maid style where you're able to switch cards randomly between people, make things pass. And you're always guessing on where that monster is, who the monster is, if you want to join the monster's side, if the opportunity arises. And then if you are the monster, you also gain some special ability. So that is variable from game to game as well. So you have a different effect that you'll get to see, which I think is super neat. So it's got a lot of replayability in that little box because the monsters are going to change each time. The player count changes the experience drastically. And it's a lot of fun. And I was surprised to find it for so cheap. It was like $8 or something like that. So big fan of Monster My Neighbor. And yeah, it completely surprised me because I think that the aesthetic is kind of interesting. It's got the anime art style, which is fine, but it didn't super draw me in when I first looked at it, but the gameplay is solid, and I think it's a great little card game. That is Monster My Neighbor. Next up is a surprise. It showed up on our doorstep randomly, no shipping, no nothing. It's been like 4 years since this thing was supposed to deliver. This is Arkeis. So Arkeis is an Egyptian dungeon crawler where I believe, who is our designer here? Yes, Antoine Baza, and I think that was the biggest thing. Ludovic Montblanc. Those were the two reasons that I decided to jump on this, because I believe Antoine Baza does Seven Wonders, and I love that game. And so I figured, okay, new take on this dungeon crawling experience. Let's give it a go. And I'm pretty dang impressed so far. So I've only played the tutorial on this. So it came in last week on Monday or Tuesday. And so it was right before FrankCon and all that stuff had started. So I got in a tutorial play, did some organizing for it, got it all prepped and ready to go. It's actually on my table to play more of it, and played through the tutorial. And it's such a smooth system. I love this one. I hope that it opens up more. And I think that's going to be the biggest factor, is if the campaign itself delivers on the streamlined experience. But it's a lot of fun. The way it works is, on your turn, it's a simple 2 actions per turn. You can use it to move, interact, attack, whatever. It's pretty dang straightforward on what you can do on your turn. But the way that the actions work, the exploration, each scenario has an event deck that's tied to specific icons. So that's going to be unique. You have these monsters that are randomized, but have different ways that they interact and how they change your dice faces, which I love, because you can have a single die that you roll, but it changes from your different experiences, which I think is so cool. And then you also have these research and interaction points that your results go directly into a campaign book. So this is a big thing. This is a legacy campaign game where you're going to be writing and making permanent changes in a book with stickers, and this is going to move you from mission to mission. But the way that it's integrated from the mission to mission, so it's not just happening at the end of each round, but while it's playing, I think is so well done. So not only are you trying to make immediate jumps in the now, but also everything you do is going to affect your end of round and every future action. And you can get new abilities and bonuses that go into your camp in the form of stickers and different buildings. And then you're also going to get XP that you can use in your characters, get new abilities. It's such a cool system. And I think that the writing is cool. I love this world, the concept of being these explorers and going into tombs and exploring. I'm looking forward to trying the rest of this, and I hope my rating stays the same or goes up. But so far, as a tutorial mission only, I think the tutorial is perfect. And it's one of those games where after you read the tutorial, you feel so comfortable. I'm ready to just jump in right to the next one, and I don't feel like I even need to reference the rulebook. So far, 8 out of 10 tutorial only for this. But I'm looking forward to playing more Arkeis. That's next up on my table here. Next up is Arkham Horror, the card game. This is the revised core set. I'm having so much fun with Arkham Horror, the card game, this summer. I have played 4 campaigns of it this summer. I've played a bunch of the originals, so I guess more than 4, but a bunch of the original campaign, Carcosa. I played a Scarlet Keys, a Innsmouth, and I'm in the middle of a Expedition Everest one, so I forget what it's called specifically. The blue one. It's the blue one, the light blue one, where you're going out to the Arctic. But God, this game is so good. So I just wanted to get another copy of the revised core set, just so we had more additional copies of the cards. So it got to some deck building things where it was harder to build with more than 2 players. So now that we have an additional core set, this is going to give us even more copies of each of the different core cards. And I think it'll be great for deck building purposes to reach those higher player counts. I'm enjoying this game at all player counts, which I think is awesome. And yes, new art as well for some of the initial investigators. Excellent stuff here. So that is another copy of Arkham Horror, the card game. Next up is the special edition for the Castles of Burgundy. This also just arrived, but I was able to get 2 games of it. I tried out the solo mode, which works super well. Pretty dang impressed with it. But I also got to try out the new expansion. So this bid itself as a beautiful new version of the Castles of Burgundy, and it definitely delivers on that front. It is gorgeous. The art is awesome. The functionality of it is excellent. There is one big flaw that I'm so mad about it. But the new expansion here, the Vineyards expansion, I think is pretty dang cool. It is something that if you are playing with it, you definitely need to engage with. Otherwise, you're going to get squashed. But the way it works is every single round, you have the opportunity to buy these vineyard tiles. They're double tiles. They take up 2 spaces in your hand. And then when you play them, you want to order them in a way that they are connecting the different colors. Because every time you finish a terrace, you'll have this special little board that you're actually going to be placing them on the right here. And every time you finish one of the terraced tiers, you get a grape token that lets you score one of your grape areas. So you're trying to make sure that you are using that, because in addition to getting that scoring, you also get 2 bonus effects each time you place it down, whether it be points or getting extra tiles. They're pretty integral, and I think if you ignore it, you're going to lose. And we had 2 other players that were playing it, and the first person had dabbled into it a little bit, and they did much better than the person who did not dabble in it at all. The person who didn't dabble in it got absolutely destroyed. So something to be aware of if you are playing with this expansion. You need to play into it or you will lose. The last thing about this is the thing that I was disappointed on. One of the things I was so excited for was the hex tiles. The hex tiles were going to have the abilities of each of the different buildings on the back. And I thought that was so awesome. I was like, yes, this is perfect. And it's something that they got rid of in the second reprinting. Like, I forget what it's called, the 20th anniversary edition or 10th anniversary edition, where they took out like the colors of the backs of the tiles, and it made it so it was super difficult to figure out where they belonged at the end of each game. No, they took the color off the front. So specifically for the black tiles. And so in this version, they said that they were going to give descriptions of the technology tiles and every other tile on the back of each tile. And so I was thrilled. And in the game, you can do that, but that's only if you play with the cardboard version, which is super frustrating. So what we ended up getting was we went all in on this, and there is a addition here. Aha. Here it is, the Royal Pledge, Majestic Pledge. We did a Majestic Pledge sun drop. So we got all the stuff, and one of the rewards was acrylic tiles. And these acrylic tiles, unfortunately, do not keep any of the explanations of the abilities on the back of them. That's so frustrating. So I opened it up. I was so excited. I was like, yes, this is going to be not only beautiful, but accessible. But unfortunately, it is not great. Luckily, the symbology is fine. There's a little reference that you can use. And heck, if we're not feeling it, we can get rid of those acrylic tiles and put in the original cardboard ones. But the acrylic tiles do feel super nice, and I don't know if it's going to be as big of an issue as I thought, because the iconography is fine, and the fact that there are player aids now for all of them, where before there was just in the back of the book, a little harder to look up. So I think it'll be okay. And my last hot take on this is the miniatures for this game are surprisingly awesome and surprisingly fun to play with. I was quite surprised. So I got these because I just appreciate the Sundrop edition of all of Awakened Realms' stuff. And I thought that this would be a fun thing to do if people want to play with it, to have the miniatures and have them painted. I think it would just look good on the board. But then playing with them myself, it is kind of awesome. A lot of these miniatures are great because you never have to shuffle random tiles from the bag. Like the castles are always castles. The mines are always mines. The boats are always boats. And so they do show up, and they're pretty dang cool when they do. I think the shading and the Sundrop version is excellent, and they do keep the color as well. So I think that's also something to be aware of. It reminds me a lot of the Nemesis paint job, where you can see the clear color delineation and nothing has been changed so that it's unrecognizable. So I thought that was pretty dang awesome, and it does make the game pop, and I enjoyed them a lot more than I expected. We have Monster Motorsports here. They also love playing the Vineyards expansion. I'm glad. So super excited that the Vineyards expansion worked, and the fact that if you're playing with it, of course you want to engage with it. So I imagine in the future people will use it more instead of sort of just focusing on the core strategy of snatching up all the stuff in the center as quick as possible. We have another comment here. I understand the frustration of the lack of text on the back of the acrylic tiles. My wife and I have played Castle Burgundy so many times that we rarely need to reference the ability of the monasteries. Totally get that. And I think that's sort of where it came back to, was once you got the familiarity with it, and there's a bunch that are sort of repeated powers, the like getting 4 points for each additional tile of a specific type, or if you have different farm animals you get points for this. It was pretty intuitive after a while, so I do think that it is fine. Yeah, I think it's good. Yes, and Jonathan, the miniatures look gorgeous. Think I'd prefer the tiles, but who knows? I was surprised. I really thought that I was just going to ignore the miniatures and just leave them in the box, but it's pretty cute to have your little farm animals there. For pure aesthetics, it's pretty good stuff. And agree, John, good addition to a great game. Yeah, super agree. The artwork is lovely. All the tiles are perfect. And do be aware, there are 2 sets of acrylic tiles if you're going to get those. One of the acrylic tile sets is for just the tiles, and then the other is for all of the additional components like the workers and whatnot. So something to be aware of. Yes. So yes, once you're familiar with the pieces, you are going to know their functions. So totally agree there. But overall, pretty impressed with the new edition of Castles of Burgundy. And then our last game that we got in here is a new Crokinole board. We picked up a Tracy Grey Rock Championship Crokinole board set. So we were going to have our FrankCon, and we wanted to do a big Crokinole tournament. Last year we did a Crokinole tournament, and we knew that we were going to have to make it go a lot longer because we only had the one Crokinole board. So what we did this year was we were able to get 8 teams playing at the same time. So we had 4 Crokinole boards for the Crokinole tournament. So I bought a second one for the library so that we had 2 from us, and then we're able to get 2 more in from people local that had some that were willing to let us borrow them for the event. So it worked out well, and oh my gosh, this Tracy board is crazy. I was so surprised with just how different the experience felt. The biggest thing has to do with the bumpers, actually. I don't even know, like everything. This just the combination of it. So the bumpers are these rubber bumpers, and my gosh, it's like playing on a pinball table where you flick the disc, and as soon as it hit ones, it just carries it around, and it's everywhere. It's wild. It's something that now when I play on this one, it's like, ooh, got to be really careful because I don't want it to go crazy. It's wild. And then the other neat thing is just the surface itself is so smooth. I can't describe it. I think smooth is the best way to describe it. Things just glide, and it's such a wild, drastic change. So originally we were using a Mayday board, which I still like. I still think it's super interesting to play on different board styles, but the quality of this is insane. So that is the Tracy Grey Rock Championship Tournament board. I'm pretty happy with this purchase. Now, in addition, when we got this, we got more of the pucks. So we picked up the blue, green, and orange pucks, and then more of the counters and more of the scoreboards. I like the scoreboard more from Mayday because it's all in one box, and it also stores the pieces, whereas it also stores the score counters. But the one here from Tracy it was just a big plank. So it was a big plank, and then you put the pegs on top, and it didn't really have a storage idea even conceived for it. So I thought that was a little frustrating that it was a huge step up for the board itself. Such a cool experience, but then the score counters felt almost like an afterthought, which is a little unfortunate. So those are all of the games that we got in, all of the new expansions, and now we move on to our upgrades. Now, starting off with our first upgrade, seeing as we got a new board, we needed a place to put it, and there were no strings or anything like that on the back of this one, so we got a board wall mount, and this works so well. Pretty dang impressed with it. It was something that I was able to install, and that's a big thing because I usually am terrified to do these projects, in particular with having to drill holes into the Crokinole board itself. That's terrifying. Yes, just bought this big thing, and the idea that I could ruin it terrified me, but it worked. I was able to get it on the wall. It worked perfectly, and it looks great. So happy that the board wall mount works, and there's a great YouTube video that they have to actually help you install it. So oh man, I was terrified. I couldn't believe it, but it worked well. We have a good question here from John. Did you play with powder on the new board? So we played with and without powder. So they did offer powder to play specifically on their board, and both worked extremely well. So I think that the powder actually worked pretty dang well as well. No complaints here. I think that it's a brilliant system. And then the last thing we actually got sent by Awaken Realms. So I reached out to Awaken Realms back in December or January when all the Etherfield stuff came out last year because I wanted to do an organizing video for it. But sometimes Awaken Realms will release new content in their pledge managers, and I totally missed it. So there were two additional miniature sets. You had the Etherfields Advanced Heroes, which are just new sculpts for the heroes once you get like their advanced form unlocked. And then the second one was the extra alternative creatures of Etherfields. And these were just extra miniatures that you could use based on your encounters in the new expansions. And so I didn't even know that these existed when the pledge came in. And then I saw people showing off their full pledges, and I was like, what the heck? I'm missing out on this stuff. Oh, man. Because usually when I do the organizing videos, I want to make sure that I can do it for an all in. So if somebody does have all this stuff, they have a way to not only organize it, but also utilize it in their game to game. And so I reached out to Awaken Realms back almost half a year ago to say, hey, I can't find copies of these anywhere. And they actually did send copies to us to put into an organizing video. So I thought that was awesome. They did send them unpainted, which did kind of suck because we did buy all of the Sundrop versions for everything else. But hey, they're miniatures. And so I took it upon myself to try to give them my own version of a Sundrop pledge. And I'll be honest with you, just like the hardware stuff, I am not the greatest painter. It's something that I find is super challenging, and it gives me a lot of anxiety and stress, and it's something I dislike doing greatly. But I was able to do it. I don't think they look particularly great, which is kind of sad, but I'll still go through with the organizing video, I think. But yeah, you'll definitely notice a big difference in quality between their Sundrop and my Sundrop version. But overall, I do think the miniatures still look good. I think that it's fun to have the exact version, exact copy. And thanks again to Awakened Realms for sending these, and I will implement them into the organizing solution. So those are the miniatures for Etherfields. And that brings us to our last section. We're moving on to all of our pre-orders. So our first pre-order here is Everdell Farshore. I actually just received the shipping notification for this, so it should be coming in hopefully within a week. And this is going to not only include this new version of Everdell, but also it came with the wooden tree. So there's a wooden Farshore lighthouse. I'm not exactly sure what these are for, but I think that the Everdell system is solid, and I love playing with the different expansions for the game. It's my favorite way to play Everdell. But I'm hoping that the things that I've heard about this game is that it's good and that it streamlines some things, takes out other things, and it adds this new nautical exploration theme, which I love. It's one of my favorite themes in board games is like sailing to different areas and interacting with islands. It's why I like Sleeping Gods so much and Fleet the Dice game, believe it or not. And I'm always willing to try a game with this style of theme. One of the things that I'm hoping for is that it removes some of the cards that felt a bit degenerate, like the Cranes or the Innkeeper or the Rugwort cards. Not a big fan of those. And so hopefully this takes out some things, adds new things, and makes it one that gets pulled out more than the original Everdell. Now, the original Everdell is still excellent. I love playing specifically with Spirecrest. I love the challenge that gives and the restrictions. I also like using the special abilities and powers. And I've had a lot of fun with the new golden connectors. I think that one's awesome because you have the 3-time use of getting I forget which expansion it is. It's the train one, the one that comes with the train. You have new objectives that you can chase after. So I love that. You can take on as many different scoring criteria as you want, but it also comes with the access to awesome cards early, but only a limited amount of them. So looking forward to it, and I hope this is good. Yes, so excited for this one. I love the retheming on this. And then we have another comment from Monster Motorsports. We just received tracking number on Farshore 2 and even added the 600 count Everdell sleeves. Excellent. So yes, definitely going to sleeve this one up, particularly since it's all about those cards. Yeah, looking forward to Everdell Farshore. Next up, we have a new super surprising announcement, and this is from the Gloomhaven Festival they had on backer kit. So they had all of these different Gloomhaven options that you could pick from, and I honestly was pretty uninterested in it. It had an RPG as well as miniatures for the game, and then a revised second edition for Gloomhaven. I wasn't interested at all, completely ignored it. But then they announced Buttons and Bugs, and this is a solo mode it's a sort of a reimplementation of a fan-made game called Gloomholden, but they have now official Gloomhaven art, an entire story of shrunken down characters, and they've taken it and made the Gloomhaven experience into a small little solo experience that still retains the feel of that dungeon crawl, of the combat, of picking the different abilities. This looks amazing. And the fact that it's in that super tiny box and the cards are the maps, that is so good. I'm looking forward to this. It feels like this is kind of the thing I wanted from Gloomhaven Next, was something that was smaller and accessible, but also a little bit different. And this is excellent. This is exactly what I wanted from Gloomhaven. And then they hit me with the 1-2 punch with another announcement where they said, oh, in addition to releasing this cool new game, we're also going to give you the thing that you've been wanting forever. And this is the Frosthaven Play Surface book. So this is also on their backer kit whole explanation thing. They said that they are now, what you can see it here, they're play service books. Just like in Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, then you can now remove the tiles and just open up the book to whatever page of the scenario you're playing. There are multiple books to make up for these giant maps, and you put them next to each other, and then you have the hidden stuff in one of the other books, and it's going to reduce the setup time for each of your scenarios from Gloomhaven dramatically. And this is the thing that I wanted the most out of everything. I don't believe there is one available for the original Gloomhaven, so maybe I missed it. Oh, if I did, let me know down in the comments, but they have it for Frosthaven, and my wife and I are playing through Frosthaven right now with 2 people, and I think this is just going to be something that is going to let us keep on enjoying it even more and going to push us to even potentially replay it once we finish it. So this is excellent. So the only criticism I have with this is I wish it came out when the original Frosthaven arrived, but hey, it's here now. Looking forward to trying this one out. Got a comment from Jonathan here. Looking forward to this one, especially since traveling currently with Mint Knight and Mint Imperium. Would love some travel Gloomhaven too. Agreed. I think the size is going to be the biggest thing here. It's going to be its strength. The fact that it is so portable, but gives you that Gloomhaven feel so you can get your fix wherever you're trying for. So good suggestions for some pocket games there. Let me know, Jonathan, what are some of your other favorite travel games? I'd like to hear. Always looking forward to seeing what would be great to play when moving from place to place. So that is the Frosthaven Map Book. Next up is a pre-order from Simon, and this is Metal Gear Solid. And this one's kind of funny because I actually pre-ordered the original Metal Gear Solid board game when it was by, I don't remember the company who was putting it out. But this one here is a Emerson Matsuuchi project that is a puzzle-style stealth scenario-based game, and that just sounds awesome. It's like somebody took this cool IP, took the concept of something like Assassin's Creed, and then is going to have the streamlined nature of an Emerson Matsuuchi game all wrapped up into this cool scenario-driven experience. So I have not played a lot of Metal Gear Solid. I think I've played 2 games. I played one that was on PSP, and then I played one that was on PS2. So I couldn't tell you the names, but this looks so cool. You've got easy to lay out map tiles. So they're just the giant map tiles that you just put on the board, so you don't have to fiddle through all of these little things. And then you're supposed to have a really simple system of doing your actions, and then a AI system that's also supposed to be easy to manage. So I've been excited for this one about 5 years going now, and now that this is going to actually be a thing, and I love the production that Simon has, and you've got this amazing designer on the backside who's actually dealing with the mechanisms. I hope for nothing but good things from Metal Gear Solid, the board game. And then Jonathan also says that they think Isaac plans to offer for Gloomhaven 2nd Edition, but not the original. Okay, that makes sense. I wonder if you can, like, how drastic that would be. Maybe that's a question that'll be on like the FAQs or something. Like if you can still use the books for the original edition of Gloomhaven. But that being said, like now that we've played Frosthaven a bunch, I don't know how often I'm going to return back to Gloomhaven. So I've played through Gloomhaven 3 times completely at this point. I've played it 2-player and then solo twice. And I don't know if I'm going to go back to Gloomhaven now that I've played Frosthaven, and I just enjoy that world of Frosthaven a bit more. And I think the characters are more interesting and exciting. So I don't know if I'll need to get back into the original Gloomhaven. And then we also have from Monster Motorsports, just received a solo-only game from a friend called Demon Ship, sci-fi miniatures game that fits in a 6-inch by 6-inch box that has magnets. Oh, cool. Okay, very cool little solo game. So that is Demon Ship. Awesome. I'll have to take a look at that one if we have a little bit of time left over. Demon Ships or Demon Ship? Ship board game. So we'll go ahead and look at that in a little bit here. All right, and that brings us to our last section here. This is our final game that we've pre-ordered, and I don't know if this necessarily counts as a game, but more of a storage system. This is hopefully the ultimate Tanares Adventures storage system. So this was announced when the delivery was happening for all the Tanares Adventures stuff. It is a new box that is to fit everything in a logical way for Tanares Adventures. Now, myself, when I played the original Tanares board game, I had a lot of fun playing the 2-player head-to-head version. I think that's super fun. You have your team of champions versus your opponent's team of champions, and you're just duking it out. I enjoyed that a lot. You have these cool abilities, drafting characters, and then you also have lots of different modules and options that can give you special abilities and items and artifacts. I enjoyed that one, but I didn't enjoy that much the solo and the cooperative mode of it. I felt that it was pretty by the numbers, not a lot of interesting choices happened, and I thought the AI was not that exciting or interesting. Now, that being said, I have not delved into Tanares Adventures. When it arrived, I got it set up, but nothing fit into the original box because we got the sleeve version, and it was a little frustrating because I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know if I even want to commit time to this. Like I'm using the characters. I have played it since with the characters in the 2-player fighting mode, so I have used the content from the expansion, but I've not dove into the campaign content. And that's because it's a little overwhelming. You have all this stuff that you need to manage and organize, and there's a bunch of other campaign games that I'm like looking at and enjoying right now. Yeah, so hopefully this box is going to be something that declutters everything, makes it so it is logical and ready. And in addition to offering the giant box, it's also supposed to offer some quality of life things. There's going to be like a pull bag for the items. It's a similar concept to Frosthaven's loot deck, but it's going to have a loot bag. I'm curious if that will work based on the shapes, because you're supposed to use miniatures to represent the loot that's in the bag, but if you can touch it, then you could probably tell what it is. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe it's one of those like the honor system thing where you just reach in and grab it, like the randomized bag for the dim sum game. We'll see. So I hope that it's good. I hope that this is going to convince me and push me over the edge, because right now I am a little occupied with other campaign games, and I don't know if I'm going to prioritize this, especially when it's so daunting with having to get through this. Let me know if you've played the Tanares Adventures campaign, if it's something that you're having a good time playing with. I am still enjoying this game quite drastically with the co-op, the competitive version. So I do enjoy that. So I'm definitely getting mileage out of all the different characters, but there's all this content that I haven't really accessed, and I want to know if it's actually worth doing so. But looking forward to trying that super box full. Look at that thing. It's huge. 2 giant storage boxes. But we've seen that this works well with things like Oathsworn, so looking forward to seeing it if it works well with Tanares Adventures as well. And that brings us to the end of our video. That's all of the games that have entered the library during the month of August. We've got some other things coming up on the horizon. As mentioned before, we have Everdell Farshore that just arrived, that we just got the shipping notification for. We also have the Fun Brick series by Etten Games, Etten Games. That includes things like the new Reiner Knizia game. There's like a Ninja Dash one. There's like a stacking one, Viking Seesaw. All of those are on that shipment. We have the new Marvel Champions, so Next Evolution should be here shortly. And then looking forward to giving some thoughts on some inserts that we received, so that we got some more of those for review purposes. So lots of different things that are coming into the library at this point, and trying out some new types of content and review content. I don't know if that I'm going to save my thoughts on those until I get it all completed. So I built it yesterday, and we'll see if it actually helps out with the game. We'll see what happens. Looking forward to just trying out all of these different videos. So I'll leave up the chat for a little bit. If you have any questions or want to see anything, I am going to follow up on Monster Motorsports and take a look quickly at the Demon Ship game. So he said a magnetic small dungeon crawler. So let's take a look at it. Let me get a drink real quick. All right. So let's see. Demon Ship. It's a 2023 game. Okay. Can you survive the ship? All right. Grab your blaster, battle axe, stop into the depths of the demon ship. A solo micro tabletop game. You're the last remaining crew. Repair the ship, restore power, and escape before it all goes to hell. So let's see this thing. So it's supposed to be magnetic. All right. I like this. It looks like maybe this one's not necessarily what you get in the box. You've got wooden pieces that you're creating. Lego version. Okay, maybe. Okay, this must not be exactly what it looks like. So let's look at this one. Okay. So you got this cute little book. Okay. This must be the ship itself. Do you have to create it beforehand? It looks like it's just like classic action figures. Interesting. So do you have to create all of this when you play? Fascinating. And there's the demons themselves. Okay. Demon ship. Interesting. I have never heard of this. There it is. The pre-painted terrain kit. Interesting. Micro game. Maybe that's just based on cards and this just adds some flavor to it. Yeah. If you have any comments on demon ship, this is one I've never heard of. That's interesting. Cool. All right. So the other one that I've been looking at is, okay, the other one that I've been looking at recently that actually is supposed to have a similar theme is Space Hulk Death Angel. So since I got that copy of Nexus Ops, I've been looking at other out-of-print card games. I was playing some Blood Bowl Team Manager, and a couple of names showed up as out-of-print games, and one of them was Space Hulk Death Angel. I want to play that one a lot. It looks like it's a cool solo and cooperative game that has the survival style and theme, but the modularity of something like Marvel Champions. Sounds awesome. I want to try Forbidden Stars. I think that one looks super cool. Also in that same discontinued out of print situation as Space Hulk, as well as Blood Bowl Team Manager. But that's what I've been interested in. So if you've had any experience with these out of print games, that's what I want to try next, to see if those are worth finding and bringing into the library. All right, let's see with... Okay, yes. Monster Motorsports says the MDF train kit is extra. Okay. And then the core components are 5 miniatures, tokens, and a campaign book. You move through one room, rearrange the room to simulate your character walking into the next section of the ship. Okay, that makes sense. So you're entering new rooms, organizing things, and then interacting with it, I guess. That sounds awesome. I mean, I like the fact that it is so portable. What's like the core mechanism? What would you say, Monster Motorsports? What's the thing that's like, ooh, this is what I like, and what's the main gameplay loop? What are you doing most of the time? Because that's going to be the biggest thing for me. I like this concept of having it all in one box, but is the turn by turn something that's going to be engaging and exciting? But I like the concept of surviving and escaping your ship. So that sounds cool to me. Yeah, I enjoy the Nemesis games, and that has a similar concept of survival, but also completing mini objectives and then getting out of there. So all knowing when to push and when to pull and when to get out. So I like that stuff. All right, I'll leave it up for a little bit longer. I'll quickly talk about some of the games that are going to be here soon. We have the Combopolis expansion. We have the Witchstone expansion that we're going to be trying out. These new Summoner Wars with the Swamp Orcs and the High Elves, I believe, are the second one. The Clash of Decks Season 3, that one should be arriving relatively soon as well. Yeah, looking forward to trying out these new experiences. And I also just want to play more Age of Innovation. That game is so good. Oh, so I'm curious what your thoughts are on that whole situation. Do I say, hey, this is the best game, even though it was already an amazing game in the end of the year lists? I know it was pretty split when the same sort of thing happened last year with Great Western Trail Argentina. So I don't know what the best approach is. I think that's the best approach, to just be straight up and show my rating. And then if you want to consider that being the first in my list, you can. You can just be like, oh, based on that rating, this must be the best game from 2023. So I think that's probably the best. That way it's a win for both sets of people that want to see what game truly is the greatest and which one is like a new title instead of just sort of a reprint. All right, Monster Motorsports has gotten back. Every action of placing different dice will relate to an action the aliens get to respond. So it's a puzzle to maximize your actions, but knowing what the aliens will do on their AI turn. I like that. It honestly reminds me a little bit of the way that your actions work in Under Falling Skies, where you know what the consequences of your actions. And so trying to mitigate the disaster, but also knowing what it's going to do on your end and the enemy's end. So I think that's a solid mechanism. It makes sense to me. You have the input randomness, so you get all of your stuff, and you then must decide what you're going to do with it. So I like that a lot. Awesome. So, okay, I'll take a look at it. So this is a demon ship. Excellent. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video here. Thank you so much for joining. Good to be back on the channel doing some live stuff. We just finished up FrankCon. That'll be the next thing that we do, is our big FrankCon report, talking about all of the different games and awards that we received, our winners for our tournaments, and just how it went in general. Thank you so much for watching. SideGame Strong, y'all.